The world was small, shut in, black, a private world for Canino and me. Halfway there, the headlights nearly caught me. They turned swiftly off the highway, and I slid down the bank into the wet ditch and flopped there breathing water. The car hummed by without slowing. I lifted my head, heard the rasp of its tires as it left the road and took the gravel of the driveway. The motor died, the lights died, a door slammed. I didn't hear the house door shut, but a fringe of light trickled down through the clump of trees, as though a shade had been moved aside from a window, or the light had been put on in the hall. I kept on listening. No loud voices, everything quiet and refined. He would be purring at her, as she would be telling him she had let me go, and I had promised to let them get away. He wouldn't believe me, as I wouldn't believe him, so he wouldn't be in there long. He would be on his way and take her with him. All I had to do was wait for him to come out. I couldn't do it. I shifted my gun to my left hand and leaned down to scoop up a handful of gravel. I tossed it against the screen of the window. It was a feeble effort. Very little of it reached the glass above the screen, but the loose rattle of that little was like a dam bursting. I straightened up and got into the car backwards, fumbled around for the ignition key, and turned it. I reached with my foot, but the starter button had to be on the dash. I found it at last, pulled it, and the starter ground. The warm motor caught at once. It purred softly, contentedly. I got out of the car again and crouched down by the rear wheels. I was shivering now, but I knew Canino wouldn't like that last effect. He needed that car badly. A darkened window slid down inch by inch, only some shifting of the light on the grass showing it moved. Flame spouted from it abruptly, the blended roar of 3 swift shots. Glass starred in the coupe. I yelled with agony. The yell went off like a wailing groan. The groan became a wet gurgle, choked with blood. I let the gurgle die sickeningly, one choked gasp. It was nice work. I liked it. Canino liked it very much. I heard him laugh. It was a large, booming laugh, not at all like the purr of his speaking voice. Then silence for a while, except for the rain and the quiet throbbing motor of the car. Then the house door crawled open, a deeper blackness in the black night. A figure showed in it cautiously, something white around the neck. It was her caller. She came out on the porch stiffly, a wooden woman. I caught the pale shine of her silver wig. Canino came crouched methodically behind her. It was so deadly, it was almost funny. She came down the steps. Now I could see the white stiffness of her face. She started towards the car, a bulwark of defense for Canino, in case I could still spit in his eye. Her voice spoke through the lisp of the rain, saying slowly, without any tone, "I can't see a thing, Lash. The windows are misted." He grunted something, and the girl's body jerked hard, as though he had jammed a gun into her back. She came on again and drew near the lightless car. I could see him behind her now, his hat, a side of his face, the bulk of his shoulder. The girl stopped rigid and screamed. A beautiful, thin, tearing scream that rocked me like a left hook. "I can see him," she screamed, "through the window, behind the wheel, Lash." He fell for it like a bucket of lead. He knocked her roughly to one side and jumped forward, throwing his hand up. 3 more spurts of flame cut the darkness. More glass scarred. One bullet went on through and smacked into a tree on my left. A ricochet whined off into the distance, but the motor went quietly on. He was low down, crouched against the gloom, his face a grayness without form that seemed to come back slowly after the glare of the shots. If it was a revolver he had, it might be empty. It might not. He had fired 6 times, but he might have reloaded inside the house. I hope he had. I didn't want him with an empty gun, but it might be an automatic. I said, "Finished?" He whirled at me. Perhaps it would have been nice to allow him another shot or two, just like a gentleman of the old school. But his gun was still up, and I couldn't wait any longer. Not long enough to be a gentleman of the old school. I shot him 4 times, the Colt straining against my ribs. The gun jumped out of his hand as if it had been kicked. He reached both his hands for his stomach. I could hear them smack hard against his body. He fell like that, straight forward, holding himself together with his broad hands. He fell face down in the wet gravel, and after that there wasn't a sound from him.